today. We are here for our March professional development from AFP NEO, Healthy Mind, Thriving Career, and we're going to learn how to take care of ourselves. If they can help us with that, we all say that we should do that. We know we should do it, but I'm not really sure how to find time and prioritize it. So I'm excited to hear what they have to say. My name is Sue Figler. I work for iGift Fund in Hudson. We're a donor advised fund sponsor, and I'm excited to be the professional development co-chair this year with Tiffany Leeper. So we're excited about that. So we just want to welcome everybody. I'm going to do a quick introduction of Kurt and Kathy, and then they're going to do some kind of brief presentations, and then we'll have kind of a Q&A session. So we're a comfy, cozy group here, so you're not interrupting. We'll monitor the chat, raise your hand, or feel free to just have that shout out moment, because I think we have a manageable enough group that we can do that. So Kurt, if you'll raise your hand in the group, just so that we know, Kurt is the founder of Brimstone Coaching Group. He's coming all the way from Iowa for us today, so we're excited about that. He's a certified internal family systems practitioner, a trauma-informed coach, and the co-founder of the coaching group. His background spans corporate leadership, pastoral ministry, and coaching, and he helps leaders break free from self-doubt, embrace authenticity, and lead with confidence. Kurt shares that he's overcome his own struggles with imposter syndrome. He's passionate about guiding others through transformational growth into authentic leadership. And Brimstone's unique E plus R equals T approach, encounter plus reflection equals transformation, is what he uses. He hopes to equip individuals and teams to move from exhaustion and frustration, yay, to clarity and wholeness. He's also the co-host of the Brimstone Coaching Podcast, so I will have to download that, where he and his coaching partner explore leadership, personal growth, and breakthrough barriers. Tiffany and I had a great conversation, introduction with Kurt about a month ago. So Kurt, I'm really looking forward to what you have to share with us. And then we're also happy to welcome Kathy, if you'll give a little wave there. Posner, she is a coach, speaker, trainer, and author, and she founded Transition Consulting and Coaching in 2007. She provides career coaching, HR support, and organizational consulting services. She also works as a specialized training consultant with the Medina County Career Adult Education Department until 2024 as a senior coach and career curve, providing outplacement and transition support to candidates. She's active with many organizations in the community. We were just discussing that before. She's part of leadership group for 100 plus women who care Medina. And for her work in the community, she was honored to be recognized as an Athena Leadership Award recipient. She lives in Medina with her husband Mason and daughter Lucinda, who is at the University of Pittsburgh most of the time, but home occasionally. Kathy enjoys helping individuals and organizations connect with the things they're good at and supporting each to develop those gifts. So we have folks here from around the corner and across the Midwest, so we're excited for that. And again, I know that our team is really here. It is a lunch and learn, so that's oftentimes why people don't want you to see them eating, but we're poised and ready to go. So I think that we're going to start with Kurt and go for it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Susan. Yeah, it's really great to be here. Thanks for having me. I do understand somebody said that you're shoveling your face. That's a real word picture that I don't know what to do with, but please feel free to do that. Yeah, so let me just say a little bit about self-care. I think we hold as a coaching group a couple things to be true that we've seen not only in our own leadership, but in the leadership of those that we coach. We see that most of us show up in our places of work or in a boardroom or in a meeting with a donor, wherever it is we find ourselves. We show up doing two things. We show up doing the thing that we're responsible for. Again, whether that's meeting with a donor or leading a board, or even just parenting, maybe. We do those things, but we also do the second job of hiding and making sure that people don't think we're incompetent, or making sure that people don't think that we don't belong. We try not to be found out as if there's anything to be found out about. But we believe that second job really detracts from the first job. It really takes away from our energy into that first job, but it also robs us of energy, and it robs us of wholeness. It keeps us from being our truest selves in all the places we go. So when I think about self-care, maybe the first thing I want to say is that I think it begins with self-awareness, to be able to say what's so for us, to be able to realize the ways that I'm showing up in the world, maybe showing up again in boardrooms or in conversations with clients or in conversations with my family. Having some self-awareness to even know where to start with self-care seems really critical in our work. Not only critical to begin the work, but critical to say what do I need? If I'm not clear on what's so for me, if I'm not clear on the places and spaces where I might get overloaded, or I might get frustrated, or I might get triggered, if I'm not clear on those, it's going to be really hard for me to name what I need for self-care. Now, with that said, I mean, I want to invite you into that. That's a longer process than I have time to do here today. But I do want to offer some practical things that I think are key self-care pieces. The first is rest, physical rest. And I'll be honest, I feel a little hypocritical inviting you into rest because I'm not great at this myself. I think there's a myth that says if we stop and rest, we're just going to get behind. There's a myth that says, I don't have time to rest. I used to work for a person years ago that would say, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Do you all know this phrase? I hate this phrase so much. I think I liked it earlier in life, but the more mature and the older I get, I just don't like it. I don't think it's true. I actually think physical rest makes us more productive in the times that we're actually working, and the time that we're actually giving our energy and our effort and our attention into those responsibilities we have in our roles. So I maybe want to invite you to set that myth aside, to say, if I take time for rest, I'm going to get buried. And that might be true because there's always work to be done, right? I don't know about you, but I'm not sure I've ever gotten to Friday or Saturday or Sunday and said, gosh, I'm just done. There's never a time where we're going to feel done. So maybe the first thing I'll invite you to is to just carve out some space for physical rest. The second practice that I want to put in front of you is the practice of self-reflection. We could maybe even say meditation. I mean, there's a couple different words we can use for this, but again, we as a coaching practice believe that reflection is as close to a silver bullet, or as close to a secret sauce to growth and maturity and transformation that we can give you. And reflection is going to look different for every person. So I think I want to give you a broad runway to say, try on some different things. I have a client that says that they take 5 minutes at lunch every day, and they say, how did my morning go? Where did I show up stirred up? Where did I show up in ways that I don't love? Where did I show up in ways that I do love? And that's just a routine every day at lunch. I have another client who says they get to the end of their day and they spend 10 minutes writing in a journal. I lost my cool a little bit with my kids today, or I lost focus because I got triggered with a volunteer or a donor, whatever that is for you. Again, I think self-reflection is just so important, so that we know what's actually true, so that we know what's actually so in our lives. We actually know then what we need. The third practice I want to give you is to do something that brings you joy. Do something that you think is fun. I think, again, this gets into that myth that if we take time to do that, that we're going to just fall behind and we're just going to get buried beyond our ability to get out. I think there's also a myth. I think we're all Midwesterners, kind of. I might make a case that Ohio's not Midwest. I mean, you can come at me in the chat if you want. But I think there's a myth that says if we do things that bring us joy, that's really selfish, that we're taking away from either our organizations or our families or whatever it is. I maybe just want to invite you to think about that differently, and think that's you're right. I'll include Ohio in the Midwest from now on. Yeah, I maybe want to invite you to think about this differently, to say that those times that you can do something that brings you joy, whether that's taking a walk, whether that's hopping on your bicycle, maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's putting a puzzle together, whatever it is. I really do think there's something important about the refreshment that comes out of that, that then allows us to go into our roles, whatever that may be, rejuvenated, with a new sense of energy. Lastly, I offer this one to you kindly and gently. It's the practice of self-discovery. This can be so daunting, and it pairs right up with self-reflection, but self-discovery feels pretty scary, because it involves asking a trusted friend or a trusted colleague to be able to hold up a mirror in front of us so that we can see ourselves, that we can see the areas that we're growing. We can see the areas that self-care is actually having a positive impact, or we can see the areas where our self-care is maybe not doing what we thought it might do, right? If I, for example, decide once a week I'm going to hop on a bicycle and go for a 5-mile bike ride or whatever it is, if I can have a trusted friend or colleague hold up a mirror and ask me some good questions, I can evaluate clearly with the help of that person. I can evaluate whether that self-care is doing what I thought it would do. Then I have the opportunity to change it or alter it or keep it going. Maybe I do like the results. I can just keep that moving. Again, self-discovery is pretty scary. So I want you to hear me say, to do this with a trusted friend or a trusted colleague. Be safe doing this, but I do think there is something important about being able to hold up a mirror, having someone else hold up a mirror through a series of good questions. Those are the practices I want to give you. I think maybe how I want to wrap before I hand this off to Kathy is to say, care for yourselves well. It is really hard to care for yourselves well. There's so many things that tell you you shouldn't or can't. Don't believe them. Easier said than done, but don't believe them. Care for yourselves well.
That's great. I want to jump in here real quick and just say that Kurt and Kathy also created handouts that were emailed out to all registrants this morning. And so, Kurt, we thank you for those handouts for us all to be able to use and ask ourselves some questions. So thank you. I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware that those were there. And next we're going to turn it over to Kathy for a little bit of talk that she wants to give us, and then we'll jump into our prepared Q&A and some open Q&A.
Thanks, Tiffany, and thanks for inviting me to be here and to have this time with you all. Thanks, Kurt, for those very, very important tips. Can solidly get behind what you're talking about. There is so much to say, so I'm going to try to limit. So career work in general, we know, can be a crazy tumult of emotions. You know, you ride the highs when you achieve something, you land that donor that you've been working with for 5 years, and you know they finally have committed a gift, or you're doing something else, and then you might have a difficult run-in with a coworker, or you've had an unsuccessful project. And so adding to that is that we live in a culture of go, go, go. And our culture, it's go, 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 achieve, and then move on to the next thing. And we are rarely encouraged to sit back and enjoy our accomplishments and mark our accomplishments. And Kurt, to dovetail on what you said, it's the perfect time. That's a perfect thing to be thinking about as well, is to track your accomplishments. I am a big book of keeping, or a big fan of keeping a brag folder on your hard drive, and just kudos, anything that anyone, maybe you've gotten a really nice note from someone, maybe something, you had an article published in something that you weren't planning on. Catch all those things together and track those. But in my conversation today with you, I especially want to address transitions, which can be exceedingly hard, stressful, they are challenging to most people. Some people love transition, and that's uncommon, but it's there. Some people love transition. Um, but what makes it more stressful is not only is the voice inside your head playing, but then you add in the hit to your self-confidence, especially if you're making a transition not by choice. And then your partner, your best friend, your Aunt Dorothy starts telling you all the things that you should be doing. And as in terms of many coaches, many self-help gurus, I am all about knocking that word should out of the vocabulary. But so be it, it's still there. So I'd like to share some tips about how to navigate when you're going through a transition and just some other things that if you work in a more challenging environment to create some boundaries, some better boundaries around yourself. So the first thing is just straight up to protect yourself. So you want to balance sharing your situation, networking, talking to people that are important to you, and staying away from the people that you know will get in your head and plant the things that are not going to be helpful to you. That has to do with coworkers too. So even in a regular work situation, be aware of the people that you know press your buttons. They can be people that are very close to you as well, that you generally get along with fairly well, but sometimes those people have more import to you in terms of what they're saying. So um, for self-care also, and for protecting yourself a little, I am all about blocking schedule time. So Susan, you were talking about finding the time. I often, when I do leadership coaching, when I do work-life integration coaching, I often, when we look at some different things like the 8-point coaching wheel or some other things that I challenge people to block 1 hour or an hour and a half or one morning a week and try to schedule in something. I had one woman that I worked with last year that her job was getting busier and busier. And one of the things she really enjoyed was exercising with her friends, and they would take these long walks together. And then all of a sudden, her work was consuming that time. And so she started blocking out Wednesday morning, I believe, she didn't go into work until 9:30 or 10, and they were able to start doing those regular walks again. It made all the difference in terms of her mindset. So think about blocking some time on your schedule if you are having a challenge, meeting a time requirement for your self-care. So I preach two things in my coaching practice. They are 2 of 3 points that are the cornerstone of what I do. And the first thing is focus on quality over quantity. You have limited time and energy. You have limited brain space to be navigating the different things that happen during a transition. And when you're looking at opportunities, when you're looking at conversations to have with other people, really look at what are the things that are going to bring you the most joy. Thank you for that word, Kurt. That are going to bring you closer to where you want to be in terms of who you know you are. The second thing I'm about is not settling until you have to. And sometimes, especially in a job search, you do need to settle a little bit. But I am about that is the option of last resort, as we've heard that phrase in our culture for many different things. But it's important because when you settle at the front end, things start to slip gradually, anyways, just by the tincture of time and other things. So I really endorse quality over quantity and not settling. So for self-care, direct self-care during these times, I have some tips that I'd like to share with you. The first one is try to eliminate the clutter in your head by knowing what you want. And so I have something that I've been using in my coaching practice. I've had a coaching practice for 17 years, and I've been using this almost since day one, and it's called my 7 to 10 theory. And so I want you to think about, on a scale of 1 being the worst thing you can imagine and 10 being the best thing, I want you to think about right now how you feel about your job. And you don't need to share it, but just think about it in your head. And what I have found in my work with people when they're looking at opportunities, when they're looking at postings, when they're having conversations with others about potential work that might be coming up for you all. It might be some project-based work if you're working as a solopreneur. You want to ask yourself, how do I feel about this? Anything worse than a 7, I'm fine with my clients, is really not worth your time. So that adheres to the quality over quantity as well. And it also helps, I talk to people that are looking at job postings and they say, well, I'm spending just hours and hours on Indeed and doing this and doing that. And it's because they're giving those 2, 3, 4s, and 5s too much time. So it's about moving you through and getting you to start to create some criteria. And it's just about doing a quick gut check, heart check, whatever you want to call it, intuition check about what will be the right things for you and stick within that 7 to 10 range of interest. Know your values. So how many of you have ever done, you can do a show of hand, how many of you have ever done a values assessment? Yeah, I see there's a couple of hands going up. So it's really important to know your values. And some people say, well, then why do I need to know my values for work that I do? And the answer to me is that the closer your work is to the values that drive you in your life, the happier you'll be. And honestly, the closer that you are to your values and the more you'll know your values and live in your values, the easier it's going to be for you to make decisions. So it helps to eliminate some of that indecision that you might feel. There's a joke with everyone that I ever speak to that if I don't drop a Brene Brown quote, I'm not doing a talk. So I'm going to drop a Brene Brown quote right here about values. So there's a bunch of different values exercises. The one that I use with my clients has an emotional intelligence space, but I've added the last component to it, which is a Brene Brown suggestion. I believe it's from Dare to Lead, and I'm looking over there because I have a stack of books over there. But my values exercise that I have through the emotional intelligence theory takes you down to 5 values. Brene Brown says most values roll up into 2 core values. So that's something also for you to think about. And can you imagine making choices based on 2 core values? It really helps streamline things. So knowing your priorities is something else that can help with your decision making as well. Again, I do a priorities exercise with clients. But if you wanted to engage on that on your own, part of it is just making a list of some things that are part of your work life, whether they're important or not to you, and then start to rank them. Is money important, or is it more important that you have a healthy work culture? Is additional learning a good piece for you to have included in your work, or is that not so important anymore? Is title important? We all have different values. So pace yourself. So I always joke in the handout that I have is that this is a marathon and a roller coaster, especially when you're looking for new work. So you want to pace yourself. You think that your impulse is to throw yourself into your work or into the hunt and throw yourself into looking for a job would be then your new full-time job. But it seems counterintuitive, but if you do it that way, you're going to get burnt out pretty fast and you're not going to put your best energy towards your best resources. So don't work on your job search every day if you're in a transition. And this can translate to a difficult project as well, as long as you're not up against a tight timeline. And even that I would push back against a little bit. But if you have some space, you want to pace yourself and give yourself breaks when you're mixing up what you're working on and you're not just working on your job search. You want to do something nice for yourself. Kurt hit on this great. And you talked about joy. I put in my notes even before Kurt and I knew what each other was talking about. Relaxation and joy are important. And you want to create opportunities for those moments because you will come back refreshed and more productive. Exercise, take a walk, do some yoga, take a class, go hiking. Endorphins are real, and they will start firing when you are able to get out there and do some things to exercise. Don't isolate. That's another tip. When you're going through a transition, and this is a broader base for any transition, we are a pack culture. And so even though I joke, I am an introvert. I could stay home all the time every day and be just fine. My friends call me an extroverted introvert because of what I do, and also in smaller friend groups, I'm extroverted. But for the most part, I get it. You might want to stay home. At the front end, I didn't really talk about this on the notes. You need if you've been let go from a position or you're making a transition not by choice, you need to give yourself time to grieve and time to address that transition and address the different things that you're feeling. But then it's important not to isolate and to get out there, interact with people, especially those safe people. I call the other people dream crushers. Stay away from the dream crushers. So then you want to maintain a sense of agency. And I just love the word agency. We spend so much time at work in defining ourselves by our work, especially in our culture. Remember, you are in control of your actions. You are in control of the consequences of those actions. You are the initiator and the driver of those actions. And that's what gives you a sense of agency. And it's important when you might feel like things are very out of control to hold on to that piece. I want to just talk a little bit about coaching in general. And I know that one of the things that we were talking about in the little blurb for the session, and then in some of the follow-up conversation we had via email with Susan and Tiffany, and coaches offer a variety of roles. And I hope that Kurt and I have shown you a little bit how coaches can help you. I had a client, I love this. I keep this. So a few years ago, this is actually pre-COVID, so it was more than a few years ago, but I had a client that sent me a little meme, and it was a woman sitting in a lotus pose doing yoga, and over it, she said, Kathy Posner, the noise canceller. And I have to tell you, in the 17 years I've been coaching, that was one of the biggest compliments that any of my clients ever paid me. And so part of the deal with coaching is that we can help you minimize that voice in your head, and Kurt's spoken to that as well, and help you with direction, organization, support, guidance. Can be a cheerleader. I call myself a coach and a consultant because sometimes I'm too bossy and I just tell people what to do, because I work with people on resumes and LinkedIn and things like that as well. So that doesn't necessarily fall into the pure coaching pedagogy where someone would help you get to that point where you are. But it's also someone for you to check in, not your best friend, not your spouse. I don't know about you, but sometimes when I'm dealing with a problem, I can see it in my husband's eyes when he's had enough. He's like, okay, well, let's move on from this conversation. So, but hopefully your coach is someone who is an expert in his or her field, has spent time gathering resources for you and then sharing those resources with you. Most coaches offer customized support based on your situation. It sounds like both Kurt and I do. Specialized program with activities. I know that, I don't know, this might be spoiler alert, but Kurt had offered something that I think is a real gem. But they can also help you see the bigger picture. For example, I offer a career mapping program that's where you are now versus where you want to be in 7 to 10 years. And so they can help you see, they hover a little higher than you are in terms of perspective, but are willing to get there, as Brene Brown says, in the empathy pit, to sit there with you as well. So thank you for your time today so far. And I think we're moving on to the Q&A portion of our talk.
Yes, thank you, Kathy and Kurt. Wonderful things. And in fact, I even made notes that you guys have touched on some points that we were going to ask about. So we have time to talk about some of these prepared questions that we had. And I will tell everyone in the audience, if you have a question, go ahead and drop it in the chat, and we will be monitoring that. And if we have time, we will get to as many questions as we can as well. But to kind of get us going on this Q&A session, I thought the nice a place to start would be, what are those early signs of burnout? I mean, I think we're all here because we saw self-care. I need that. So what are the signs that we are experiencing burnout? When do we know, oh, wait, I need to maybe reassess how I'm doing things and look at my priorities? And so maybe each of you can touch on that, and what your next steps would be if you realize I'm burnt out.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Kurt, do you want to start?
We both did the hand motion at the same time. I was trying to offer that to you. We're both going to do this. We're both going to say, you can go. Why don't see, we just did it. Okay. I have one major sign that I help my clients look for, and there's lots, but the one major one that I see is when I or when others start to show up in spaces in ways they don't understand, or they start to respond in ways they don't understand. We use the terms regret and remorse a lot, and those might be too strong. But if I'm walking out of a meeting or a conversation with someone and I feel a level of regret or remorse that I either did something that I wish I wouldn't have done, or said something I wish I wouldn't have said, or the opposite could be true too. If I left undone something I wish I would have done, or didn't say something I wish I would have said, I think for me, those feelings of regret and remorse, again, maybe those are too strong, but I think you get the intent there. I think those to me are the earliest red flags and sort of swirling sirens that I help people navigate.
I know, I will say, this is a spoiler alert, so I hope I don't ever do this with any of you, but personally, when I start screwing up my calendar, that's when I know I'm in too deep. And I just got back from traveling internationally, and it was very funny because I tried to add a few coaching appointments on my calendar while I was gone and realized that would be a fatal mistake because of the time shift on your calendars and everything. But I know personally, that's one of my things, and that has to do with letting things sort of, it's regret and remorse for me because all of a sudden I miss an appointment, or I realize, oh shoot, I have to move these people now because I missed something that was on my calendar earlier. And then classic burnout for teams especially. And so I work with a lot of organizations. And so there's a 3-point chart that I use in one of my slides. It's fatigue, it's avoidance, and it's mistakes. So lack of engagements, mistakes, fatigue, and avoidance. So that's 4 things, but the avoidance and the lack of engagement kind of play hand in hand with each other.
Great. Yes, I think I can certainly relate to that. You start making silly mistakes and you realize, oh boy, something's going on here. Can you then touch upon that? So we feel the need, we are like, oh, something's going wrong. I'm feeling this burnout. Can you kind of elaborate on how that will affect your career and why it's important to take that moment and rethink and reposition? Let's let Kathy go first this time, since you guys have such a hard time deciding.
Well, we'll be like the chipmunks, right? Chip and Dale. We'll keep trading. No, you. No. So lack of reflection and burnout, moving too fast. So it's so cliche, but I talk about slowing down to speed up in so many different circumstances. And having that kind of burnout can be disastrous for your career because, one, you're not enjoying anything. So all of a sudden you're just trudging through day to day and trying to make it work, and probably not bringing your best self at home either when you get home from work. And then also, I always say those pauses are where the magic happens. And I don't know how many of you have ever had your best idea in the shower or your best idea when you've taken a walk. But I know that I can safely say that a good 60 to 70% of my business would not be built if it wasn't for those things that just came to me in a moment when I was just having an empty space and not thinking about things. So not moving so fast, and that's usually what causes the burnout, is in stepping back and having time to take those pauses is so important for the success of your career and the fulfillment that you're entitled to with your career.
Yeah, Kathy, I mean, I don't know that I could say that better about the reflection piece and the pauses. I think I might say this, that I think there is sort of a cultural norm that says I feel these things, but I just have to keep going, right? I can't stop. I can't acknowledge these things. But I liken it to this. If you've ever held a beach ball under a pool, in a pool, like if you try to push a beach ball underwater, like it's really hard. Your hand wobbles because it doesn't want to stay under there. But the harder you try to hold that under, the deeper you go, the harder it is to hold it. And at some point, that beach ball is just going to rush up to the top, and it's gonna get water on everybody. I think when we try to hold this burnout down, I think what happens is it's going to find a way out. And often it's with coworkers or superiors or colleagues, whatever that is. I have a client right now who is a traveling nurse, just working her tail off too much. And she had one of these cases where burnout found its way out, and she said something to a charge nurse that was inappropriate because it didn't have a way out. So I think what I would add to Kathy's comment is that those pauses are necessary, and if we don't do them ourselves, if we don't give ourselves the freedom to make those pauses, this stuff will find a way out in ways that are negative to the circles we're in.
This is a group of fundraisers. I think we are all well aware that we better have that smile on our face, and yet we're all human. So the importance of maintaining that composure is extremely important. So that's a great analogy. Thank you for that. I want to talk a little bit about, I know there are some people on this call who manage teams, and you've mentioned teams before, but what are some ways that people who are on teams or managing teams can help support that self-care for their teammates in their organizations? And we'll let Kurt go first this time if he's ready.
Yeah, I think we're figuring this out, Kathy,
Yeah.
here with every other is great.
That's good flow.
I mean, I think this is so cliche, but as the leader cares for themselves, so will the team. I mean, I think there's a lot of easy answers here that say if I'm leading a team and I'm not caring for myself, I certainly wouldn't expect my team to care for themselves. I think one thing that I've tried to do in teams that I've led before is to create intentional spaces where I don't want to say they have to, because really it's up to them. All I can do is create spaces to say, this block in the calendar, this shared time that we would usually be working together, this is your self-care time, right? I worked in an organization where the first Tuesday of every month, we would intentionally take the morning and say, this is your self-care time. Do I think every person cared for themselves in that time? No. But as a leader, what I communicate in that is that I find this important enough that I'm going to take that time that could be, quote, productive and give that to you as the people I lead, because I care about your well-being. I think there's so much importance in finding ways to show the people we lead just how much we actually do care about their well-being. I think that might be the biggest investment we can give, is actually caring and making an actual investment, whether it's time or paying for a coach or paying for a counselor or whatever that might be.
Kurt, I love those things. And the modeling piece, especially what you're talking about, is so important. I want to add to that. And I also want to talk about leaders in general. So unfortunately, a lot of leaders we know have stumbled into it, and they've never had training. They've never had recommendations about what makes a good leader. They've never had coaching about what can help to be leadership, get the most out of your teams. They're working from a place that you don't know what you don't know, and you're trying to do the best you can sometimes. And coupled with that, so I have one of my dear friends here in town is the health commissioner, and there's a lot on her plate. But I have to tell you, she is one of the most balanced people I know. She loves to go out and have a fun time with friends. She creates opportunities for her staff all the time. I wanted to layer on 3 other things to what Kurt was saying, and this is straight up emotional intelligence theory. And so teams tend to work together because of 3 things. They tend to work together because they have gratitude for each other, and especially the person at the top is able to express gratitude. I am all about sending an email or a note to someone on your team who's done good work, just a little comment. Shared vision is the second reason why teams work well together. It's about that everyone understands what we're doing and where we're going. I can imagine there are several of you, many of you on this call that have worked for a supervisor who had this plan in his or her head, but didn't really do a great job in terms of the trickle down and sharing where you're headed. And I know that creates confusion, it creates chaos, it creates lack of priorities on the team. So that shared vision, getting everybody on board is really important. And lastly is something called PEA. And that is positive emotional attractor. And again, this is an emotional intelligence thing. It has to do with brain chemistry, which I bet that Kurt would be so much better at explaining the brain chemistry than I would. So I am not a math and science person. But positive emotional attractor is that place you live in your brain where think of your best vacation you've ever had. Think of you doing your Zen stuff, the stuff that makes you really happy when you're in the zone. That's the feeling of positive emotional attractor. Granted, it's going to be hard to get your team to feel like they're on the best vacation you've ever had, but there's ways of presenting information to your team that pivot into the positive emotional attractor rather than the converse, which is NEA, negative emotional attractor. And when people are negative emotional attractor, they tend to shut down. Kurt, I bet you have something to say about this.
I don't know that I want to add, Kathy. I think I do want to add one thing, but I don't want to interrupt if you're still
I
going.
know, I'm good. Those are the 3 things I wanted to share. So
I'm going to offer this. This is going to sound harsh, but I feel like I've adopted this in my own life. There's an author named Ruth Haley Barton. Maybe some of you know Ruth Haley Barton, but I'm going to paraphrase. She has said that if a leader is not investing in his or her own growth, they are disqualified from leadership. And I would not say that to you if I also didn't believe that was true for me. I have a coach, I have a counselor, I have people that help me continue to grow. But I think under what sounds cold and harsh is actually a really beautiful invitation to me, to you, to anybody that calls himself a leader, to raise the ceiling, right? To raise the lid. I think in any group or any team, I as the leader am the lid of the potential in the group. And I think what Ruth Haley Barton is saying, what I believe so deeply, is that when I invest in my own growth, I'm raising the ceiling of the entire team.
love that.
That's really great. Absolutely. And that is a wonderful transition. I wanted to offer questions if anybody had them, and I don't see any in the chat. We still have a little bit more time, so if you do have a question, be sure to throw it in the chat. But since we are here to this point, I want to give both Kurt and Kathy an opportunity to talk about any upcoming programs that they have. I know Kurt has a special offer for all of us, and we'll be sending that information out. And Kathy also has some services that she can offer. So Kathy, if you want to tell us a little bit about what you offer and what your business does, just in a couple of minutes. And then we do have a question coming in, but I'll let Kathy and Kurt each answer that, and then we'll jump back to Sue Costco's question.
Sure. And I just want to say one of the misperceptions that I run into the most is that career coaches just deal with someone who needs a resume and needs to change jobs. And so I want to be clear that I deal with everything regarding your career. I have worked with clients to talk about difficult situations. I help people prepare for promotion and advancement any way they're looking at it. I help people coach up. Sometimes we do have those bad leaders, and you need to coach up in addition to coaching down. But I do offer a number of programs. When I have a talk, I'm always willing to the group that I'm speaking with to offer a discount on future programs. I offer a free introductory appointment that is by Zoom or by phone. And some of the programs that I'm finding that people are using the most these days are, if they're not just straight up job seeking, they are working with work-life integration and how to address that. And then they are also doing the leadership alignment. So figuring out what kind of leader you are, how you want to exercise that self, where are some of your current challenges in your leadership and how to address that. And then the last program is the program that I discussed earlier, which is the career mapping program. I do a lot of talking about different stages of career. There's 4 stages, generally speaking, of career that people go through. And I happen to be working with a lot of people in the 4th stage right now, which is really fun because I have to tell you, I'm in 4th stage of my career. And I'm rolling into 4th stage. So it's fun to be working with people that are also contemporaries as well. But yes, the career mapping, sort of where you are now, where you want to be in 7 to 10 years, that might be you just amping up your career. So if somebody's in their late 20s, early 30s, how do you capitalize on that next 10 years in terms of your career growth? If someone's where they are at my age or something, I'm in my mid 50s, that it's about where do I want to be in 10 years? Do I want to be retired in 10 years? And how am I going to approach that? So I'd be glad to continue the conversation with any of you in a one-on-one capacity. So.
And Kathy's website is up there in the chat. I dropped that in as well. And Kurt, would you tell us a little bit about what you offer and your upcoming cohort?
Yeah, thanks, Tiffany. So we exist as a coaching practice, like Tiffany said, or like Susan said earlier, to help leaders who feel exhausted, frustrated, overloaded, really begin to feel wholeness. We believe that wholeness and living into our truest selves today is possible, and we believe that so many of us don't, for all the reasons that we've been talking about for this entire time. Our coaching philosophy is based on a couple things. I already mentioned this idea that we show up in places and spaces doing this second job of hiding and not being found out. That's one of the things we base our practice on. The other is this, that most of the ways that we as adults show up is based on our first formation. Things that we learned in our first formation, which is like elementary school to high school. And we are not clinical psychologists, so I'm not referring to these sort of catastrophic big T trauma events. We would say that we all have a number of encounters that might even be like little t trauma, meaning these are encounters that shape us, whether we know it or not. They cause us to fall into patterns of behavior that keep us safe, that keep us getting attention and affection. And what we believe is that those things were probably good in our first formation. They probably did help us. But we have done them for so long into adulthood now that many of us do those same things today, whether we know it or not. We just do out of an autopilot response. And we really believe that often those are not beneficial. Again, helpful to our younger selves, probably not helpful to our adult selves. So we help people through a process of self-discovery to see those things, to name those things, and then we help them navigate their way into new ways of being. We say it like this: we make promises to ourselves. I made a promise to myself early in my life. I call this a protective promise, that I promised myself I would never look dumb. Because looking dumb was dangerous. Now, that was probably good for 3rd grade Kurt, not great for 35-year-old Kurt. So we help people navigate those and replace them with more purposeful and preferred promises, because that's where we think wholeness and our truest selves lie. So I want to offer you. We also offer one-on-one coaching. We coach like this with groups as well. But I want to offer you a learning cohort that I'm going to put together. That's on every other Wednesday in May, or not May, April. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Wishful thinking, maybe. Every other Wednesday in April, starting with the first Wednesday, where we'll walk through what are protective promises, how did we make them, how are they impacting the ways that we show up as adults today. Then we'll look at what we call purposeful promises. These are replacing protective promises with what's true about us today, right now, so that we can actually know what's so in our lives. Spoiler alert, they're actually really positive. And then we end with a look at preferred promises, which we say are promises that we make to ourselves about how we're going to live our lives going forward. So there will be more details on how to sign up for that, but I would love to invite you. You all have sort of exclusive access into that cohort, and I would love to see some of you take part in that. We just believe so deeply in the work.
Wonderful. And Sue Figler dropped that link into the chat, so that is there, and we'll probably send that in a follow-up email as well. So please, everyone, take a look at that. It would be fun to get a group of Northeast Ohio fundraisers together to do that program. Well, we have a little bit of time, and we do want to save about 5 minutes at the end for a message from Sue and Marian. But we had a question: how do you support a good friend or family member going through a career transition? Any quick thoughts on that one, either Kathy or Kurt?
To me, it's about empathy and about being willing to sit and listen with them, be there with them in their space of uncertainty, and understand. Don't try to fix them. I got to tell you, I'm a huge fixer. My husband called me out very early on in our relationship, and he's like, I don't need you to fix this. I just need you to hear me. And so, good message. And I really applaud the fact he was able to say that. If they are open to it, you can suggest certain things that might be helpful. You can suggest people that you know professionally that they might want to network with, but that is a big if they are open to it. So Kurt, turn it over to you.
I am so glad you said that, Kathy. I just want to echo it, and I would say stay away from platitudes. Nobody needs to hear it's all going to be okay. Just sit with people, be uncomfortable with people, ask a good question. A good question goes a long way. Well said, Kathy.
Thank you.
I like that. A good question goes a long way. We had a question about the fourth stage, and Kathy, I wonder, are the stages of career on your website that someone can look that up, or is that?
They are not, but I can hit on that really quickly. That fourth stage is generally, I am completely OCD, so I tend to like to block the career stages out in decades. So 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Some models push it a little later in terms of especially the fourth stage. But Paula, my short answer to that question is that the fourth stage is about you've done your time in your career, you've learned a lot of things, you've brought people up, you've created all these tools, you've shared these tools with people, you've shared your knowledge base. Fourth stage is all about making meaning and discovering how you want to share that. But really, it's about making meaning, even more so than just sharing within your current job. It's about maybe you've worked a career for 20 years or worked at a company for 15 years that just doesn't feel like a right fit anymore. And it's about making meaning. So
beautiful. Can't wait to get there. I'm going to turn it over to Sue Figler, who's going to talk about our remaining PD or upcoming PDs for the year. And then if Marian's on and wants to say a few words, Marian is our AFP-NEO president. And before I mute myself, thank you so much to Kurt and Kathy. This has been amazing and just wonderful insights from both of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, great
thank
job.
you.
I echo that as well. And thank you guys also for being accommodating. We had a little twist and shout trying to get our two March and April programs realigned. So we appreciate that. Again, I encourage you to take an opportunity to look at what Kurt has to offer, what Kathy has to offer. I've been kind of doing that in between because I've been writing things down and looking. So I think it really is about taking time for yourself. Our next professional development, we're going to get a little more nitty gritty and hands-on. We're going to be in person. This is going to be at the Akron Canton Regional Food Bank. So thank you, Leslie, to her team and those out there. They are asking that we bring a donation. So that'll all be in, if we'd like to, that'll all be in the event opportunities, but we're going to talk about direct mail and printed materials. We've all gotten away from, right? We all went electronic because the mailboxes were full, but now a different mailbox is full. So I think as our two speakers today talked about balance, we're going to talk about balance in a different way. So that's going to be April 17th. We also have Plan Giving Basics, which is a partnership with NOCGP. That is going to be May 15th, and that is at the Doubletree in Independence, Ohio. There is we will get you that information out on the website. And then in June, we are going to be at the Kent State Conference, the Ohio Conference for Corporate and Foundation Relations. So again, we're going to get offsite in person, and we're going to plug into some opportunities with different groups. That being said, don't forget to look at the Uncharitable website, get the book. We're going to talk about the book, of course, with some wine in July. So we'll get that going, and then that screening will come up of the actual movie. So thanks again, Marian. I'll toss it over to you.
Thank you, everybody. I just wanted to say to all of our attendees, on behalf of the Association of Fundraising Professionals of Northeast Ohio, thank you for attending today's professional development session, Health, Mind, Thriving Career, the Essential Role of Self-Care. We hope you found the conversation insightful and left with valuable strategies to support both your personal well-being and professional growth. And a special thank you to our presenters, Kurt Busch and Kathy Posner, for sharing your expertise, practical approaches to self-care in our demanding field. And a special thank you to the Professional Development Committee who puts these great sessions together. We look forward to seeing you at future professional development opportunities, and these are just one of the benefits of your AFP membership. And mark your calendars for April 17th, where we dive into unlocking the power of direct mail. Thank you again for being a part of AFP Northeast Ohio.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.